Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Good morning to some of you. Good afternoon officially to some of you as well. I appreciate everybody joining and hopefully learning a lot about what it means to have a fractional CFO within your business. We've brought together an amazing panel to go ahead and talk through this topic with us. And by we, I mean more specifically, Jordan Roberts, who's on here, has actually prepared all this for us and brought together this panel, as well as prepared the report that some of you have had your hands on as well. Mark Pizzula here is my business partner. He's also on screen. He's helped bring all this together. He's been helping run things behind the scenes. And my name is Eric Schultz. Jordan, Mark, and myself are all with Journey Alliance. And our company is focused on a mix between business coaching and consulting for companies that are generally between the 10 and 250 range of employees. But this panel is not about us. It's actually about the fractional CFOs that are here. So let's go ahead and just get some introductions from them. And then what we're going to do is open up for questions. We have some questions that we've gathered ahead of time that will ask to kick things off. So if you brought questions, or if you have questions that you're thinking about, please make sure that you type them in the chat so that we can ask each of the panel members along the way. Let's go ahead, Christy, if you don't mind, go ahead and give us the initial introduction and we'll just roll from there.
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Christy Cheragino. I'm a partner with Now CFO. I'm actually in our Phoenix office. We are a nationwide company, about 450 consultants. We do offer fractional CFO services. We actually also offer fractional staff accountant up to controller as well. So happy to be here. We just work whenever there's an accounting problem. We can help handle it, software implementation, strategy, buying, selling, all of those great things. So thank you for inviting me, Eric and Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Adam, let's roll to you, and then we'll go Adam, Heather, and Hayden.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Reynolds. I'm with Mackey Advisors. We're also a nationwide fractional CFO and full service accounting firm. I'm officially the director of client engagement, which is just a fancy way of saying that I'm kind of responsible for overseeing all of our clients' success towards their financial goals. I've been with the company 11 years, and it may sound a little cheesy, but I've stayed that long just because we're changing the lives of business owners. So happy to be here.
Yeah, Adam, thanks for joining us. And Heather, how about you?
Yes. Hi, my name is Heather Sarasoli. I'm a CPA and a shareholder with Taylor White. We have traditional executive recruiting that handles the permanent side of the house, but the biggest portion of our business is actually consulting, which includes fractional CFO. We do everything from entry-level APAR payroll all the way to fractional CFO. And we have served clients all over the country and have been in business for over 23 years as of May 1st. And I've been with us over 18 years. So.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Heather. And JD.
Hello, I'm JD Slough with SDH out of Frederick, Maryland. My CFO role is more in the very, very niche. I'm staying with manufacturers rep firms. They're primarily focused very small businesses but they still need the support to grow. And mine kind of came out of a rise of necessity, where I was asked to step in and help, and then asked to step in and help with another one. And so right now we're just a very small group, staying very niche. But it's amazing how much value I've realized is in the ability to be flexible and be able to help someone who can't quite afford the full-time CFO. So that's kind of where we've grown to be where we are today.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And I think just anybody listening, you can recognize there's definitely a difference between how each one of these panel members is potentially geared towards supporting different businesses or different business owners. And that was really the hope of bringing this panel together, is that if you're listening right now and asking yourself the question, first of all, what is a fractional CFO? And maybe you're asking the question of, do I even need one? Chances are you're here because you're experiencing some sort of challenge or something that's happening within your business that's causing you to question whether you need some additional financial support. And the different fractional CFOs that we have here represented will hopefully answer those questions for you and help you understand the type of support that you can have. We're going to go ahead and jump in with some initial questions. As we're pushing the first question on screen, I just want to remind you, if you're listening, go ahead and take that risk. Go ahead and drop that question into the comments, because the question you're thinking as we go through this panel event is probably not just your question. It's probably a question somebody else is thinking. So go ahead and take the risk and drop the question in so we can make sure we can answer your question. The likelihood that you're going to have 4 different representatives from 4 different fractional CFO related companies together in one spot to ask a question and get an unbiased perspective is pretty slim. So I would say take advantage of this opportunity. Other housekeeping from here is, if you do ask a question, and if we end up with quite a few questions being asked and we don't answer it during this event, we will find a way to get your question answered. So don't feel like all is lost. Don't feel like you wasted your time. But go ahead and push the question in. If we don't answer it, whether it be one of these representatives here or all of them, we'll find a way to go ahead and answer your question after the fact if need be. So let's go ahead and jump in from now with our first question. And what's the difference between a fractional CFO, bookkeeper, or CPA firm? And I know just from the business owners that we work with and have worked with, this is often a question that comes up when these business owners are looking at how to solve some of the challenges or the needs that they have. And they're really trying to determine what's the right person or the right role that they need involved. I want to go ahead and jump in, Christy, for you first on this. And then I'm actually curious to hear, Heather, your response after Christy.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just had this conversation the other day with a client of ours. You know, on the bookkeeping side, what you're really going to get at that level is some transactional type work, bank reconciliations, APAR. They're really just kind of getting the data into your ERP. A fractional CFO is more strategic. The fractional CFO is going to be helping you with looking at your future. What does that look like? What are your long-term goals with the company? Are you in growth mode? Do you need financing? What are ways you can go about doing that? Some modeling, analyzing what you have in place now, and are there cost savings there that could be implemented? We get confused all the time. I do have CPAs on staff, but we are not a CPA firm. We don't do taxes or audit. So that's the big difference between us and CPAs, is we are not doing any type of tax or audit work. We work closely with our clients' CPAs to help them get to get tax ready, right? To get their financials completed for year end and be able to submit that to the CPA and provide all the work papers they need to get that done. But a lot of times we talk to clients that have been working with their CPAs and tell us, hey, I've been trying to have my CPA help me with this strategy and I'm not getting an answer. They're busy, right? It's tax season and they just can't get an answer from them. And a lot of CPA firms, that's not their forte. They're not there to do that strategy and analysis with you. They're busy getting taxes done and getting your audits done. And if they're doing their audit, they can't help you with consulting and giving you advice, because they're there to have an opinion about how things are going so far. So those are the major differences. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, if I understand right, if I kind of put it in maybe the 3 buckets, the bookkeeper is entering in the information required, accounts payable, accounts receivable, those expenses. And the fractional CFO is not only analyzing or interpreting that information, but then taking into account maybe what the business owner or leaders are looking to accomplish with the business and saying, here's where you're at, here's where you want to go, here are the types of things you need to be thinking about or working on to make sure financially you're able to head that direction.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then you'd say on the CPA side, what most people consider CPA would tend to be focused on the tax side of the business versus the others that we just mentioned.
Tax and audit, if you do an annual audit. Yeah.
Okay. No, thanks for sharing that. Heather, anything else that jumps out to you that you would add to or say differently?
Yeah, I would agree really with everything Christy had to say. I would say titles can vary. So a lot of times I think the title is less critical versus what are the goals and objectives of what you're looking to accomplish. So I would agree a CPA firm might have certain limitations. If they're involved in an audit, they're going to run into independence requirements about how much true advice they can give you. But if they're doing just sort of a review, or even if they're doing a compilation, bringing together your financials, they may lack the or may not have the time or the perspective to be able to provide the why behind the what. In other words, analyzing those financials. So the value of having someone come in, whether they're truly at the fractional CFO level or a fractional controller level, which we've mentioned, is that they have the time and the seat to be able to be that broader business partner. And we've already mentioned the financing, analytical, operational support, making sure you have the right internal controls in place to protect your assets and make sure that your business is running smoothly, making sure you have the right financial systems in place and that they're working in the way that fits the needs of your business, and just being that advisor and that partner to you to help make sure that whatever operational challenges the company is facing, that you have someone who's sitting there in your hip pocket who can help you navigate through that. And that will be arguably your resource versus a CPA firm that might have different obligations from other clients.
Yeah. You mentioned, the title, if you will, isn't as important as understanding the role that the person needs to be playing. And so if I'm a business owner, I'm thinking about, Christy, what you said, and Heather, what you just shared as well. I'm probably thinking to myself, I'm not quite sure when I think about these titles or I think about these roles. So Heather, just as a follow-up, would you consider, if entering into a conversation with a business owner, do you help them establish clarity on who plays what role?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, usually my first question is, okay, you need a fractional CFO. Help me understand what your business challenges are. Help me understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. Help me understand what's going well and maybe what you feel you need to work on within the organization. But I think the true value of bringing in the right resource is, yes, they may be able to help you with what you know is quote unquote broken, or what you know is underperforming, or what you know you're missing. But the right resource will also be able to come in and tell you, hey, you may not have realized this, but here's the other things that I can do that may not have even been on your radar that will really add value to your company.
Great. No, it's good feedback. JD, I'm actually curious on your thoughts on this. Like you mentioned, you have a more niche focus. Anything that you see differently in the work that you all are doing?
Yeah, I guess I will hit on the niche part, is where, we have, at least for me, I'm only going after specific people that I know I've been in the trenches for that position, right? Where a lot of times with a bigger CPA firm, yes, they have, they're going to have a lot of resources, and I partner with larger CPA firms, especially on the latest trends in tax and the latest changes that are coming down the pipeline. But where the big difference for me and a lot of the fractional CFOs that have areas that we try to stay experts in, we can also hit the ground running a lot faster, where we able to dig into your day-to-day issues, not just what does the balance sheet or the financial statement say in front of me, but also your day-to-day issues.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe a little bit more involved, just based off experience and the approach that you take.
Yep.
Yep. Great feedback. Hey, we've got another question that's going to come up. Adam, I'm going to move this new question over to you. And really the question that came up from James. James, thanks for stepping out and taking that risk and asking the question. But do you ever get involved with suggesting new accounting software technology to help a company scale?
I think there are CFOs out there that definitely can and do. I will speak for us personally. Rarely. We know our limitations. We know what type of clients we work best with. So we try and focus solely on QuickBooks Online, just because that's where we're most effective, efficient. All of our processes are built around that. So when we work with new clients, we're really focused on working with clients that use QuickBooks Online, because we know that if we can be effective and efficient with our processes, we can just do our best work and spend most of our time having the right conversations and really doing valuable work with the client at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's great. And at this question, so interesting, because I think, Adam, when I think about you, when I think about Heather, and I think about Christy on these, I think all of you are probably going to have some differences in how you answer these questions. So Adam, what I hear from you is that's not necessarily where you focus, because you know that you all are most effective with people in one particular software platform, and those that are either currently using or potentially the right candidates to move into QuickBooks Online, you can deliver the most value when people are in that particular software.
Absolutely.
Great. No, I appreciate you sharing that. Heather, curious on your response to the same question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think that a fractional resource can be incredibly valuable as you're going through the system selection process, right? Because it is basically a parade of salespeople coming in and telling you why their software is best. And so it's really super helpful to have someone who's been involved in a software implementation before and has an end user's perspective. So they can think about, okay, what are the needs of the business? What are the objectives and sort of the structure of the business? What does the chart of accounts look like? And as a result, as we're going through the system selection process and we're talking to all these software vendors, someone who can make sense of what's being said and help relate that back to, is this going to make sense for this business? And then almost serve as a project manager, once the eventual system is selected, to make sure that, I call it the right switches are being flipped on the software to make sure that it's meeting the goals and objectives of the business. Because oftentimes the software vendors, no fault to them, are going to try to sell you on every possible module, and you need this and you need that. But an end user can tell you whether or not that's going to be valuable or not, and whether or not the reporting tools that are going to be implicit within this package are going to give you the information that's critical to run your business. So having someone involved not only in the upfront on the system selection, but then on the project implementation to make sure it's done, quote unquote, right from the end user's perspective, can make a huge difference, not only in cost, but also in the effectiveness of the implementation.
Yeah, so I hear it clearly from you, Heather, that whether it be the fractional CFO or a different title that plays a similar supporting role for that business owner, partnering in that software selection and software implementation is a role that you all would play, and you see it as a value add to ensure that what that business owner is looking to get out of that technology transition, and maybe they're moving from the QuickBooks to a Sage or to whatever it is, that they actually achieve the very thing that they were looking to achieve and don't end up with overpaying for software that they're not even making use of and maybe don't have good records anymore as well.
Correct. Or a software implementation that was supposed to take, quote unquote, 6 months and ended up taking a year and a half.
That never happens.
Never happens.
Christy, curious on your thoughts on the same question, because I think a lot of people are asking this question.
Yeah, this is a big one for us over the last couple of years, but especially with a lot of ERPs going to cloud and having those options and a lot of remote working since COVID. So having that cloud structure and not having to do the VPN. And we do work across all different industries within Now CFO. So with all of the kind of expertise behind us, we're also able to draw from people who have been in those industries to say, okay, what software have you used? Let's say it's a manufacturing company we're working with, right? So what are some of the great manufacturing ERPs out there? Figure out what the client's trying to get out of it, that they're not getting out of their current software, and make sure that it works. I have seen implementations, like Heather was saying, where we're coming in and they have software that they've had for a year and they're still doing their bank recs in Excel because they've never figured out how to use it. So certainly we come in and help out with those types of issues and keep that moving. But also, even prior to doing an implementation, looking through, here's some options for you. Here's the pros and cons of each. Here's what they're going to cost you, the cost benefit analysis of going with the software, because oftentimes they may be outgrowing their QuickBooks Online. So
yeah.
And may I make one? Oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe I make one more really quick comment, because Christy just made me think of it. Is that when you're going through that process as well, it's important to decide, are you building a system around your processes, or are you building processes around the system? And so that upfront work of determining sort of what that future state should look like will also be really, really critical to make sure you have an effective system implementation. So that's a very important role that a supporting resource can play. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you both for that. Let's go ahead and jump into the next question. Jordan, if you can push that up on screen for us, and we'll just go from there. So we have Michael, I believe, asking this question. Michael, thanks for the question as well. He wants to hear some examples of things that business owners haven't thought of. And it sounds like, JD, this was spurred based off of conversation from Heather and from JD. JD, curious actually your thoughts on this question here. Some examples of things business owners haven't thought of. Maybe examples of day-to-day issues that you mentioned that you might play a supporting role in.
Right. So I think so. I'll preface this with I think this is why it's going to be very important that when you're looking for a fractional CFO or any other position, that you look at the background for the role and the needs that you're in. Right. And but I also will say this leads me to on a lot of these small businesses where the fractional CFO fits the best, it's because they're growing, and all of us have been in a position at one time or another where we don't know what we don't know yet, right? And the reason why and how I kind of grew about mine was with a bigger company. The smaller company was growing, and as they were hiring more people, as they were implementing software, all those things, they thought it was just going to be whatever the sales rep told them it was going to be, and or they had people as they were hiring, they weren't thinking about, okay, wait a minute, now I've got all the parts and pieces that go into hiring someone, right? Whether it's the overhead costs, the hardware, there's a lot more to hiring someone than just a body and their singular paycheck. And I get that one a lot where, hey, I got to
Yeah.
get this position, it's $100,000 position, and you got to remind them that's just a salary, right? So there's pieces like that, building budgets, that comes up a lot when you're trying to help someone build their budgets out for their growth plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of not just providing what would be purely, financial guidance, but understanding how that business is operating, the impact that that has to the financials, and then being able to advise based off the growth path what they need to be considering based off what you've learned. So great example for us there. Anything else you can think of, JD, that you mentioned, some involvement day to day? Anything else that you touch or involved with that you might see supporting?
Well, like a lot of a lot of people in my role have came up through the ranks, whether and again, I'll talk to the now CFO because I know I've had some friends who have had very good success hiring the controller role for those where they've been in more of the day to day in a very similar business, that you end up with payroll issues, or hey, if you do this, even on the HR side of things, this is the impact that it's had, because on a small business you wear a lot of hats. And so if those people that again hiring and putting them in the right spot, that controller came in, had HR experience, had helped run an IT position before in other places, and in a very short time was able to help them clean up and get themselves in a position to put the right manager over the right place. And so there's a lot more than just, okay, are my debits and credits balancing, but once I make this decision, what's the impact on my IT team, what's the impact on my HR, how are they going to roll it out to people? And a lot I know I have more experience in seeing that because I've come up through the ranks and been in the CFO side, as well as I did taxes in the younger part of my career. But finding someone that can help you look at more than just the debits and credits is very important, and especially if they've been in your industry, and seen a company grow.
Yeah, I liked you use the don't know statement. I want to jump off from that, and I'm going to move Adam to you, and I'm going to go Adam, Christy, Heather. And so I think that fits really what the question was that was being asked. What are some things, Adam, that you would say that oftentimes the business owners that you work with don't know that they don't know, and you see that being critical to the support that a fractional CFO provides?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being able to ask the right questions at the right time. And I think a lot of times business owners, if they're even looking at their financial statements, which I know a lot that do not, they only just get their financial statements, right? They'll look at their revenue on their profit and loss. Did I grow in revenue? And that might be all they look at, or what's my cash balance in the bank? And I think what we bring is a lot more in terms of tools and supporting information that's more than just looking backwards. If we can help you implement different plans, forecasts, trending data, and really pull all that together, we're going to help you look at data in a different way than you've ever looked at it before. And that allows us just to get curious. And if we're curious, we can ask questions because you know your business really well, right? You're an expert at what you do. That's why you're in business. We know the financial side really well. If we can bring those wisdoms together, that's really where that magic and those results can really come from. And sometimes we're going to ask really stupid and dumb sounding questions because they're so simple, but sometimes those simple questions can really lead to deeper thoughts around what I call kind of the 4 Ps, right? Talking about your process, your people, your product, and your pricing. If we can dig into those with the right questions, then that's going to lead to ultimately the last P, which is profit.
Got it. Yeah, so the don't know for you, if I understand it right, is you often see business owners that are focused on where they're at a very oftentimes basic level. Could include cash balance in their bank account, very basic review of financial statements. And so what you're able to open up their eyes to is the value of looking forward and thinking about things in ways that they hadn't necessarily considered to match up to where they want to go with their business.
Absolutely. And the best part about that is if you're looking at your financial statements, you can't change those results, right? You're either happy that you made money or you're upset that you didn't hit your goals. So the nice part about adding the right set of tools and actually having more proactive conversations means if we're not on track to hit our goals, we can make different choices and decisions today to get back on track.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Christy, from you, when you think about, the average client, what are some of those don't know areas that a fractional CFO would help them explore?
Yeah, I think a big topic lately too has been kind of exit strategy. A lot of business owners, they are, they're happy with what they're doing. They're like, hey, it could be 20 years. I love this. And then a few years later, they're selling. I think you should approach your business always with what would it look like if I tried to sell in the next 3 years? And exit strategy planning should be done years in advance, right? You want to look at what kind of numbers do I want to have when I go to sell? Paying attention to what the market is right now. There are always certain industries that are the hot topic at the moment that people are snapping up for high multiples. So knowing where's my industry in this? Is this a good time? It's like real estate, right? Is it a good time to buy or sell? Doing acquisitions, is it a good time to acquire? Am I using my cash most efficiently right now? Do I have money just sitting in am I doing so well and I've got $10 million sitting in a bank account? Was a recent client that we were dealing with, that it was like, you got to put that cash to work somehow, right? At least earn interest on it. Don't let it sit there in a checking account. So, I mean, really thinking through all of those, like really forward thinking and what you could be doing to be ready on that exit strategy side. A lot of companies, if they're smaller and family owned, they think, oh, I'm going to grow this business and pass it down to my kids. But you'd be surprised how many kids have zero interest in your family business. And those are conversations you should be having early. Maybe you have one kid who's interested and others who are not. Maybe a lot of companies now are going to employee owned the stock options. So, rewarding your employees, getting buy-in from them. There are a lot of different options out there when you look at what an exit strategy might look like, and your involvement, and is that tapered off over time? A lot of times if you do get purchased, you're going to be staying on for a little while. That's going to be part of the purchase agreement. They need you to stick around. So just really thinking through those long-term plans, even if you think I'm not selling right now, you'd be surprised. Circumstances change.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good insights. The kind of the classic begin with the end in mind. So it sounds like the don't know that a fractional CFO can help support a business owner on is looking ahead to say, what would it look like if you were to exit, or what does a transition look like? I mean, everyone's going to transition one way or the other. So what does that transition look like? So appreciate you sharing that. And now also a shameless plug from a journey standpoint. Last month, we had a panel event specifically focused on exit planning with some CFA professionals. And so if anybody right now is listening as a business owner and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I don't even need to be thinking about selling or exiting. I'm early in my business, or I'm really just building and moving along right now. Now is the exact time you need to be thinking about it to make sure you're not building in the wrong direction or building in vain. The other thing to take into account is, accidents happen. Unfortunately, there are things that happen in our lives that we can't control. And so sometimes thinking about transition is less to do with just what am I going to do 10 or 15 years from now? And it's more to do with what am I going to do if something were to happen to me this year? And how is that going to affect my employees or my family who also generate a livelihood from this business? So having a fractional CFO create that conversation and help you plan out where you might go from a financial standpoint in terms of a transition sounds like a really nice value add. Heather, just curious on your thoughts on the same question, the don't know. What does a fractional CFO related role help a business owner realize that maybe they don't already know?
Yeah, I had a couple quick thoughts, and I agree with everything that's been said, by the way, as it relates to sort of the exit strategy and the timeline. That's so critical. I think part of what a fractional CFO can help with is understanding like where are you in your GAAP compliance journey? And when you're not thinking about an exit, it may not matter to you whether you're technically in accordance with GAAP, but if something were to happen or you're planning and you need 3 years of EBITDA results to be able to present to the parties that be, knowing how far you are from where you need to be and starting to plan for that now is always a good thing. Secondly, I think looking, as I call it, looking under the hood and understanding, do I have the right controls in place to safeguard my assets? And are there things that we're doing this just from an efficiency perspective don't make sense? Streamlining month-end close. Am I spending 2 days on a bank reconciliation that realistically could be automated and I could do it in 2 hours? There's huge efficiency gains to be gleaned just from having the right resource in there. And I think, and Adam kind of alluded to this as well, but it's one thing to look at the financials. It's another thing to deep dive into it and really understand the analytics behind your business. And some of the biggest wows I've seen is I have XYZ product to XYZ customer. And now that I've had someone look at it, I'm losing money on this sale and I didn't even realize it. Because when you're looking at everything on a consolidated basis, you're not getting into that granular customer profitability, product profitability. Do I have the right pricing in market? And those are the things that when they're hidden in there might not be quite obvious, but it can be absolutely crippling to a business if you don't understand what you need to tweak and what levers are critical to help improve your profitability. So those would be my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Heather, what you just shared at the end, any business owners that are listening right now, this is going to require what I would call an amount of humility to hear this and realize that we don't, as business owners, we often don't know the things that a fractional CFO is going to know. And I know conceptually we understand that. I had a conversation with an individual a couple months ago, and frankly, they may be listening right now. And as I listened to their story and where they're at with their business, they came to Journey in hopes for some type of coaching and consulting support. It became apparent to me that they needed a CFO, probably a fractional CFO. They had a nice sized business with very limited to no profitability. And as I asked some questions, my thought was there was likely a pricing issue within their business, although I wasn't able to get that out of the conversation. And it also wasn't the point of what they would hire us in for. So I pointed them at the fractional CFO as a potential service that they might step into, because they needed someone to analyze their customers, their pricing, and to make sure that every time that they took on a job, they weren't actually going into the hole with certain customers, and certain customers were keeping them afloat. So I think that's a great point to bring up, Heather, but it does take some humility as a business owner to say, you know what, I might be making decisions that I think are correct, that are helping me grow my business, that are actually moving the needle the wrong direction. Especially if you see it at a more granular level, they might be just certain areas of the company that are causing that. Let's go ahead and jump into the next question. Adam, I'm going to move this one to you. I got to use the y'all on this one. I appreciate that, Naomi. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee now, although admittedly, I'm not someone that often says y'all. I'm told I need to start using it. So Naomi, thank you for the opportunity here. Do y'all think that industry-specific experience is important considering a fractional CFO, or is it general experience? So just thoughts from you, Adam?
I think there's pros and cons to both, of course. So, the answer kind of, it depends. I think if you have an industry expert, they can go a lot deeper in specific, issues or challenges that a business is facing, and they're more likely to see how it's worked for other businesses and how to work through it in a successful way. On the flip side, I think there could be a little bit of, maybe like groupthink, or if you want to call it that way, where it's like, this is the way that we do it. Whereas if you take a similar challenge in a different industry and you try and apply it to a completely different industry, it might not work perfectly, but it might uncover different questions or things you never thought of before. I think one thing that limits a lot of people in the way that they think of how their business is performing is benchmarking in general. And the one thing that I like to think of is, if you're comparing yourself from an industry standard benchmark, the benchmark is just the average. So are you measuring yourself trying to be average, or do you really want to look at yourself and try and say, I want to be above average and I want to beat that benchmark? So I think there's some self limits that you can place on yourself if you're not careful. But it kind of depends on what specific experience you're looking for, depending on what kind of challenges you're facing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that answer. And Naomi, who asked this question, I think this is a fantastic question. JD, I'm curious on your answer to this question because you are niche.
Well, I guess I don't want to take the cop out, but I'm going to say something very similar to Adam here, right? Where um, I, yes, I'm partial for in regards to speed, right? There's and there's a lot of when the niche side, you have at least an idea, and you usually can attack some pretty big major points pretty quick. Um, but I also will say that I've also used my experience from other industries to grow into where I am now, and I do like reaching out to the CPA firms and other people that have similar but not exact, right? Because there are things that are going to apply, and it also does give you the ability to look at it from a different angle. And so I don't want to cop out and say it depends, but I will say that in many ways, right? If it's something where you need to get something done quickly and you do have a very niche market, it can make a big difference, especially if it's someone that you go, I need them to have a little bit of tax experience in this place, or I really need them to be able to talk to my CPA because this is a whole new tax world for me, right? It it just makes it easier, I think, to have that. But I definitely do not like groupthink. So I do like what Adam said there. That was a great response on his part.
Yeah, no, JD, I appreciate even just your openness on that. I think just from what you said, JD, Adam, from what you said, and frankly, just from experience we have in working with our clients who have engaged fractional CFOs or related services, as a business owner, business leader, this is where you need to do your due diligence and make sure that you have conversations with multiple companies or individuals that can support you. Because as you heard, there really is a big it depends in this. And as JD mentioned, there might be situations where that industry experience, that industry expert, really is going to help you move more quickly or efficiently through whatever the situation is that you're in. But you also might have a situation where there's value from someone coming in from an outside perspective and not trying to fit you in a specific box that might not actually create the most value for you as a business. So the it depends, I think, applies. Just make sure you do your due diligence. You have an amazing panel here right now. So if you're considering a fractional CFO, feel free to reach out to any of them. You'll have the opportunity to get contact information at the end, as well as in the report that's provided. But realize that you don't just have to have that one conversation and go with that one person, which sounds obvious. You're going to learn through the process of having conversations with each person, their feedback on whether or not they feel they can serve or support the situation that you have in particular as well. Let's jump into the next question from here. Appreciate the feedback on that. When should an owner consider a fractional CFO? Heather, I want to jump to you on this one. When should an owner consider a fractional CFO?
I mean, I think there could be any number of reasons why they should, but I would say, firstly, anytime the challenges of the business, whether it be growth, timeliness of information, analytical perspective, whatever those challenges aren't being met, or if the informational and reporting needs of the business are falling short of expectations. So, I mean, anytime you feel there's a gap between your needs and what you're getting, I think that would be an instance that would make it a good time to look under the hood. I would also say anytime you're thinking about any sort of special project, whether it be financing, capital needs, upgrading systems, instituting internal controls, if you're lacking in cash forecasting, if you are thinking about your exit strategy, any of those instances, or if you already know what those needs are and you just know you need that project management support to get through a migration of teams, tools, and processes. Any one of those instances, I think, would warrant bringing in someone with that specific skill set to supplement.
Yeah, when I hear you say all that, Heather, I think to myself, if I'm a business owner and I don't feel like I have the right information to make the right decisions for my business, and if I feel like that information is really pointed at, the finance and accounting area of my business, then that's a good reason for me to step back and say, okay, I probably need some additional support. Now I just have to sort through what that support is or who that support is. That's great. Chrissy, curious, same question for you. Anything different that you would add?
That was a great answer, Heather. 100% agree with everything she said. I also think I know all of our firms may work a little differently, but one thing we do for our clients right off the bat is we offer a current state analysis where we come in. It kind of gets back to that you don't know what you don't know. So should you consider a fractional CFO? Potentially, maybe, what is going on in my books that are or in my future and my planning that I haven't been thinking about. So we will come in and do this a current state with a proposal of things that we see, maybe process wise, internal control wise, software, hiring needs, all of those types of things, and put that together for our clients. And we do work on an hourly basis with no contract ongoing. So sometimes it kind of like going to see a therapist, right? It's not going to hurt if you're interested in just like, well, are there things I could be doing better that I'm not even aware of? Using someone that's on that consulting side that's dealing with lots of different clients and has staff that's dealing with lots of different clients, we are seeing things changing constantly. And there may be, AI is a big topic right now, and automation. So there may be things that you aren't even aware are out there that could be saving you time and money. So just having someone come in and peek under the hood, and you know what, if everything's great and you're moving along just fine. I don't know that I've ever seen that. I think everybody could use improvement. I know even within my own business, I'm always looking for improvement. So, I think if you're curious, then it's probably worth just getting a little check under the hood and maybe a quarterly meeting to let's review what's going on and just kind of check in and have that financial side, the sound advice there.
Yeah. What ran through my head as you were talking is when an owner should consider getting a fractional CFO is when they're thinking to themselves, should I get a fractional CFO? And then having the conversation with any one of you or anyone else, just to have that initial assessment done of, what could someone do to help or support them? Because I know some business owners might be concerned that, they're just going to come in and try to sell me their services or everything possible. But I would argue that anybody that's been doing this for any amount of time, their credibility and their reputation really matters to them. And so the likelihood that they're going to come in and present things that they feel are going to add value might be high, but that's because they've seen these as areas that they can support business owners. So it sounds like there's an opportunity with you, Christy, and what you all do to provide some type of initial assessment to say, these are the areas that we might be able to support if someone's considering that.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about this in terms of when an owner should consider hiring a fractional CFO, I think about it almost in terms of triggers. What is it that really triggers that owner to say, hey, maybe I need a fractional CFO? Adam, I'm curious your answer to this question, same question, but what types of things often initiate that business owner to say, okay, it's time for me to bring someone else in to help me?
Absolutely. I think a couple of key points were already shared in terms of gearing up for a special project or a transition or exit. Cash flow issues. I see a lot of times where businesses are growing like crazy on the top line from a revenue standpoint, but it's not equating to profit or cash flow at the end of the day. And confusion on why is that? What's really happening in my business? I think a couple of the other things that to really touch on. One is the knowledge standpoint. Just because you're an expert at running your business doesn't mean that you fully understand everything from a financial side. So really wanting to learn more and say, how do I look at things differently? Two, from a time standpoint, because you're the owner of a business, you're wearing multiple hats. You can't get to everything. So having a dedicated resource to be able to invest in the financial side of things is critical. And then I think an underrated and final piece that I'll share is just from a support standpoint, right? Being a business owner is extremely lonely sometimes. You can't share everything with your team or your leadership team. So just having this outside kind of support system, therapist, whatever you want to call it, to really help you have those tough conversations and just not feel alone at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm hearing a trend. I won't go so far to say what I'm almost hearing is fire your therapist, hire a fractional. Joking. Disclaimer, I'm just joking on that. But no, true, that the individual in that role does play a role as a sounding board. And because, if you can imagine a fractional CFO, if you're listening as a business owner, is going to be so close to your business, to the numbers of your business, they're going to know things in and out that they can be trusted to be that sounding board for you in that process. And it just, I guess, depends on the type of person or the type of organization that you bring in for that. So good insight, Adam. I appreciate that. JD, I actually want to round this out and ask you the same question. just to get your insight. And when should a business owner consider hiring a fractional CFO? What types of triggers often lead to that person coming to you and saying, I'm ready and I think I need support?
Well, I mean, so everybody's probably kind of covered it here, so I'm trying not to repeat it. But I think the biggest thing for me is when you're ready to grow and scale, it's just a different world especially someone who's had the experience. And this is maybe not this would be an area where I would say it doesn't have to be as industry specific, but somebody who's been there when another company has scaled, right, or grown, or made a change in direction, or you want to challenge yourself, and you're not there financially to bring in a full time person, right? A lot of times the value in it is one of the things that I've done is put a plan together, with somebody and go, yeah, I'm here. A couple hours here and there when you need me makes it really affordable, but let's just sit down and do some planning together. And I think that's a big part of it is having been there before, whether it's that specific industry or not, and saying, here's some pain that I've seen when people try to grow, or they're trying to bring other things in. Um, the CFO, because we pay all the bills, especially on the smaller side, we've had to touch just about every part of the business. And so it's funny, Adam made that mention about the therapist part. My dad was a CPA, and growing up, I remember him coming back saying that all the time. He's like, I don't know if I'm a CPA today or am I a therapist today. But it's really because it's an opportunity, because a lot of business owners don't like to talk to people about their money. But when they get in front of this, it's all the stuff that they've been holding in about, well, what if I
Yeah.
spend money on this and I don't spend money on that? And so I think that's the part where sometimes it just becomes that person that you can feel comfortable talking about money. And a lot of business owners really struggle with that part of it.
Yeah, no, it's good feedback. It's interesting to hear some of this even for us. So for Journey, we play this role of business coach as well as executive or leadership coach with owners. We, however, create a clear distinction. We are coaches, not therapists. Not saying that you all aren't, but I'm just joking. So, but truthfully, have a business owner to have somebody that they can have as that sounding board is critical, especially when you're talking about money. I would say, just to round this out, just to give insight, if you're an owner that's listening to this now. We, from a Journey perspective, are often working with business owners that are considering what they need as a next step, and they may not know that it's a fractional CFO. The triggers, the things that we often see or hear, the owner has likely been carrying the weight of this role, and if they get really honest, they're in over their head at a certain point. But they have to get really honest. If they don't get really honest, maybe they just don't have the time or bandwidth anymore, and there's other areas of the business that need their attention. The other thing that we see is there's a really capable, great employee. There's a team member that is in some type of role for the business. It could be an office manager, could be a controller, could be staff accountant. Depends on the size company and the structure that you have. But the business owner comes to the realization, as much as this employee is absolutely fantastic, they're not quite ready for what I really need right now. And often the business owner, they don't want to stunt the growth of that employee, but they also don't want to be in a situation where that employee leaves them because they feel like they were overlooked for a role. And sometimes a fractional CFO can really serve two purposes. They can actually help develop with the right person, develop that employee to become maybe what they are fully capable of that the owner couldn't develop. And at the same time, they're also serving the purpose of providing the support that the owner needs that that employee is not quite ready for. So you have that gap between employee and owner. So if you're an owner and you have that now, there's a clear reason to reach out. You also have the reality that you might be holding on to too much, or realize that you're not the one to handle it as well. And then I heard this through some of the conversations that we've had so far. If you're not getting the financial reports that you know that you need, and if there's just a lot taking place within your business that's contributing to that, there might be all sorts of reasons why it's not happening. But regardless of those reasons, that might point you to say, I potentially need to talk to somebody that has this type of fractional CFO support, because they might already know the types of things that need to be done to solve all sorts of reasons to get me the reporting that I need to make the decisions I need to make. So those are some of the common areas that we see. The last one is if you have experienced maybe let's call it a financial scare. Maybe you have a financially healthy business. I'll use the best case in this. You have a financially healthy business and something happened, some type of risk was created or some type of scare happened, and you thought to yourself, I don't know how I'm going to avoid that in the future because that came out of nowhere. that might be a good time to say, hey, maybe I need to bring somebody else in to look at this with me, because if that thing came out of nowhere and happened, you might want to have someone else help you try to see if they can avoid that thing from happening in the future or anything like it. That just comes from a handful of experiences we've had with different clients ourselves and seeing why they might actually step into a fractional CFO service. Let's jump to, I'll get off my soapbox, but hopefully that was helpful. Let's jump to the next question, Jordan, if you don't mind throwing that one up for us. How does a fractional CFO integrate with my existing team? JD, I want to start with you on this one. When jumping in, I mean, what does that look like? Because this is one of those ones that someone's never worked with a fractional service or a fractional CFO could feel awkward without knowing what to expect.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me is make sure that you're upfront with your current team, right? Because the worst thing you can do is say I'm bringing this outsider and they're going to tell you what to do, right? Like you need to have that conversation with your team about why you're bringing that person in. And myself, I personally like to look at this, and even kind of back on some of the other topics. I'm not necessarily a business coach, but I coach a lot in the background, and my kids and people and other organizations. And I I think one of the biggest roles that especially a fractional CFO can do is come in and try to help and build even more team camaraderie, right? And be that person that can stand back from a distance and really take it in and try not to pick sides in battles, any of those sorts of things where that can happen, where a company's, especially small family-based businesses, right? Where I know of almost all the ones in my childhood when I worked for my dad as a CPA, I'd go back and it was somebody's spouse that was the bookkeeper, right? And then no one wanted to ever talk to the owner's wife, so nothing ever got talked about that should have been talked about. And the other part about it is, how do you integrate with the team? Is you got to be honest. You have to be able to tell them the tough things that other people inside the organization won't tell them, right? And so that's to the owner or the person bringing you in, and then having those conversations with the team to try to baseline things. Because if you don't, and everybody thinks everything's hunky dory, there's a reason why you're getting brought in, right? And so I think communication is really the key, from even before you bring this person in, and try to make them a part of your team, of what their role is going to be, and that's got to be clear.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And it sounds like there's an amount of candor and openness involved to really make sure that the fractional CFO can come in successfully with the team. Chrissy, curious your response to this same question of how fractional CFO can integrate with an existing team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I again agree with everything JD just said. We also have to tread carefully when we come into a new consulting role, and that oftentimes we are looked at as a threat, regardless of what you tell your employees. So a good fractional CFO is going to come in and just be able to speak with them and understand that that's a dynamic, and be able to put them at ease. A lot of times when I'm speaking with my clients and their employees, I'm like, hey, look, I'm here to help. I need to understand what the issues are you're having, because sometimes the business owner may have a totally different perception of what's going on or why things are backlogged. And you talk to the employee and you find out there's a whole different story behind it, right? Sometimes, I hate to tell you guys, the business owners are the problem. And we come in and find that out, that that's where the roadblocks are. And so we can have those conversations with your employees, and kind of feel it out and be the mediator there to figure out, okay, really what is going on here. The other benefit is we can help train your employees. So when we were talking about those employees that maybe they're not quite there, they're a controller, they're not quite thinking like a CFO yet, but you see it in them. They're a great employee. They just need maybe that mentorship that nobody in the company can offer them. We have those services as well, where it's, hey, let's work alongside each other to get this project done. That's more of a strategic CFO type role, and see how you do. And we can evaluate them as they're going. You know, is it something that they look like they'll be able to pick up and be capable of, and have those conversations with the business owner. But I do agree, it's important to let them know that that fractional CFO is there, and that they can rely on them for some support and conversations, and you know, the consultant should approach it lightly, to make sure that, you know, they aren't coming in just like a bull in a china shop to change the whole organization up.
Yeah, it sounds like there's there's some care that goes into that onboarding and some assessment of, where the owner's at, where the team's at, and then trying to navigate that so that everybody gets what they need out of that engagement the best possible as well. So integrating with the team doesn't sound like it's necessarily clear cut. The thing that I hear the pattern with what JD said and what he said, though, is it sounds like there's an amount of transparency or openness to make sure that that fractional CFO has the best opportunity to be able to work with the team. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I want to, Heather, I want to jump to you as we're pulling you up, but tell a short story. Christy, you made me think of it. And so we do have a client, and they were potentially going to introduce a fractional CFO. They weren't quite sure if that's what they wanted to do. They had an amazing team member in the highest level accounting role that they have within the business, and they weren't sure if that individual was ready for the role that the business really needed. They went through a process that we use, which is a collaborative role design process, a job benchmark process, and we created the role based off of what was needed, that CFO role, what was needed, and then we were able to look at the gaps of what that particular employee had compared to the role. And we were able to have a real conversation around, here's where you're at, here's what the role requires, here are the missing pieces. And frankly, this employee was phenomenal through the process. They recognize self-awareness for themselves. I'm not ready yet. I want to be ready, but I also don't want to be set up unintentionally to fail. And so they were wide open because of this open, candid conversation to this fractional CFO coming in. And on top of that, there was now a clear ability to put together a development plan or a growth plan where this team member now knew the things that this fractional CFO would be working on to help them develop into that role over a period of time, likely a number of years, while the business still got the support that they needed. So the transparency and the openness was there, as well as involving that employee in the process as well. So Heather, just curious for you, your experience though, in terms of integrating with a team, how does a fractional CFO go about doing that?
Yeah, I think most things have been covered. I think sort of the oh wow for us is generally sometimes how hungry some of these employees are. Again, as long as it's handled in the right way, oftentimes, the business leader may or may not have an accounting background at all. So whoever is, the highest ranking person in the department may not necessarily have someone within the department to go to that can help raise the bar for them. So if it's positioned in the right way, they see this as an opportunity for themselves to close the gaps on their development, and it can end up being a very empowering and exciting thing. So I think sometimes it's hard to estimate how someone's going to react to someone coming in, but if it's done in the right way, if it's positioned in the right way, and if the person with the right skill sets and the right approach comes in, it can really be a win-win for the organization.
Great. No, thanks for that feedback. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up now. We've got a few minutes left. Just closing for me with Journey Alliance, you heard me talk about it along the way. We offer a mix between business coaching and consulting. The way to look at what we do is we actually feel like part of your team. We come alongside you as a business owner, as well as your core team or leadership team members, and help them make sure they're focused on the right things along the way with the business. Another way we like to look at it is we're essentially helping you manage the business without truly being overly involved in the operations. We consider you the experts in that. You can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. You can go to Mark's LinkedIn profile or Jordan's LinkedIn profile, reach out to any one of us, or go to our website, we did the thing you're not supposed to do, journey-alliance.com, if you want to go to our website and reach out to us as well. Let's go ahead and just go through. I'm going to go Christy, JD, Adam, Heather. Anything just to close us out, and what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're looking to contact me, my email is easy. I know it'll be in the report, but it's my first name, last name @nowcfo.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to add me to your network. If you just want to reach out with a quick question or anything, happy to chat. We really do work at all levels of accounting. So any kind of issue that's happening, we can support on, and we do have industry specific professionals throughout the organization when that makes sense. So feel free to reach out.
Yep. Thanks. And thank you for joining us. JD, how about you?
Yeah, so same with me. LinkedIn's probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me. And going forward, yes, I am very niche, and I am going to stay that way with what I do. But it doesn't mean I'm not here to help with some general questions. I do, like I said, I coach little kids and through my church and other ways in other areas. So if there's somebody you just have a general question that I can help somebody with, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn, or my email is very easy. Again, it'll be in the report, but it's jds@sthinc.com. So if you need to get a hold of me, feel free to reach out.
Thanks a lot. Adam?
LinkedIn also works for me. My email is adam@mackeyadvisors. You see there all as one word.com. I think two things that stick out to me. We have a great panel of experts here. And one of my favorite questions to ask people when I first speak with them is, what does success look like for you in a partnership like this? Because we all have little different tweaks of ways that we work through our process. So if you can answer that, I think you can have a good conversation with any of us. And then lastly, start changing your mindset from thinking that finance and accounting is a cost center in your business. It's really a way to identify, how am I going to invest back in my business in the right way and get a return on that investment?
Yeah, it's great insight. Thanks, Adam. And Heather?
Yes. Well, I am the only Heather Sarasoli out on LinkedIn, so I think you should have no problem finding me. But if you'd like, my email is heatherc@taylorwhite.com. So please reach out to me there as well. Always happy to have a conversation. I always say I'm not going to sign up for anything that I don't think I will be ridiculously successful at. So if anyone wants to have a conversation about, what makes sense for your business, happy to take, 20, 30 minutes and walk through that with you and make recommendations, as I'm sure anyone on this panel would be as well. But I would encourage you that, when in doubt, it doesn't hurt to have a conversation. Sometimes it can be intimidating to let someone behind the curtain of your business. But for the ones that we've partnered with over, 23 years, it's been invaluable. And I agree with what Adam said. Finance and accounting should not be a cost center; it should be a value center.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, thank you, Heather. And thank you everybody that's been on the panel for creating this conversation and offering value to all the business owners that are either listening now or will be listening. That's a wrap, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
thank you.